This is Vitualis the Chess Noob, here to learn and have fun playing chess. Now, I'm very pleased to talk about this game I played about a month ago, where it was the first time I encountered a double checkmate. So a checkmate where the king is under double check by two pieces. And even better, I wasn't on the receiving end of that checkmate, so I was the winner in this game. Well, let's go straight ahead and have a look. So let's have a look at a review first. The accuracy, probably what we expect at this at our level. Now, about a month ago, I was almost at 1300. I'm 1200 now. I wonder what's happened in the last month. My opponent was slightly ahead of me on the ELO rating scale. And if we look here, I had a brilliant move according to the chess.com algorithms in this game. I've only encountered that once before in my games, and in that game it was a bit mysterious why it was even rated as brilliant. Now with this game, if I do say so myself, it was a pretty good move. So let's have a look at the analysis now. Alrighty, so I am an e4 player, so e4, opponent played e5, and so let's go into the Vienna game with knight to c3. In this game, the opponent developed their bishop to c5, and so I responded with bishop to c4. Now, computer reckons, moving the queen all the way to h5. Look, I don't know, that just looks like the basically it's the wayward queen attack. I don't like that attack. I don't like playing that game, so I don't think I would have ever made that move, even if the computer suggests it. They develop their knight to f6, and potentially there is an early push to f4, basically entering something like the Vienna Gambit. Now in this game, I chose not to do that, and instead develop my other knight to f3, and this position now leads to a more positional game. They develop their pawn, I castles, then they try to pin my knight to my queen. So I don't like that. I don't like having that knight pinned, so I immediately decided to just kick that bishop out with pawn to h3. They retreat the bishop all the way to d7, potentially having wasted a move. At this point, I decided to advance my knight further to g5 with the potential fried liver type attack. However, this was a bit speculative, given that it's fairly easy to refute with just castles, which is a good move anyway. And so now that knight is kind of looking silly in that position. Develop my pawn to d3, and my knight gets kicked back to f3. At this point, I decided to try a queenside attack. So that pawn's coming. Yep, they retreat their bishop, which was expected. Wasn't too sure what to do next. I thought, why not continue the b pawn push, attack the knight, captures. I captured back with the knight, thinking I had an attack on the bishop. Retrospectively, this was not a good move, as chess.com reckons, and at least they just called it an inaccuracy rather than a blunder, partly because the obvious next move for the opponent is counter-attacking with their knight to a5, which simultaneously has an attack on my bishop, but also a discovered attack on my knight. So I was very happy to see that didn't happen, and in fact they retreated their knight to e7, I suppose increasing the defense on the king side, and in this position I was perfectly happy to trade a knight for the bishop. One of the things is I do like to have my bishop pair. Opponent captures back with the rook. I develop my bishop to e3, and the opponent retreats the rook to a8, and I remember feeling in the game that didn't seem like potentially the best move. There's nothing particularly wrong with it, but maybe it was a wasted move. At this point, I decided to launch a kingside attack. I wanted to get rid of some of these defenders of the king, so my thought was to potentially attack, I suppose in a very direct way. The Stockfish likes that move, but I didn't like this one. Uh, but that's okay. Captures, captures. That was what I was expecting. Captures, and then push the pawn, attacking the bishop. I expected the bishop to retreat, so I was a bit surprised when the opponent captured with the knight, potentially really trading a knight for two pawns. And I was trying to get rid of some defenders of the king as well, and happy for them to oblige. So captures, captures, and then threatening the bishop with the pawn pushed to f3. Computer reckons is a great move. Look, I don't know. Seems pretty obvious to me. They retreat the bishop to e6 again, and here I thought, yep, let's get rid of that bishop in the bishop trade. All right, now my thought with moving the queen to e2 was that I was going to move the queen onto the g file. I wanted to move that rook to the g file, move the king out of the way, potentially having an attack on the king. And the opponent allows it. You'll see in the game moving forward that I think perhaps they got a bit stuck with the idea of trying to just push that b pawn forward. My queen's now in line. They move their king out of the way, which is probably ostensibly a good idea. Certainly Stockfish thinks so. I move my king here. Stockfish suggests moving the king the other direction. However, in this situation, I didn't really want to move my king back towards the center. Again, here we see that pawn push. Now the battery is set up with the queen and the rook. The opponent moves their rook to defend that pawn, which probably makes sense. At this point, I wasn't entirely sure what was the best move. Computer suggests a queen trade. I didn't really like that, so I pushed that pawn forward, which probably weakened my position. The opponent moves the other rook here, and I did think that was probably a bad move, given that it really cramps the space that the opponent king has, and I wondered whether or not they made a mistake there. I decided to protect that pawn with the second pawn, and they push their f pawn forward to f5. Now, I didn't want that pawn to move any further forward, and one of the important things to note here is that the opponent just lost one of the defenders of the g6 square. And I thought if ever that square isn't defended, then queen to g6 would be a very powerful move, and they already lost one defender voluntarily. I moved my f pawn forward as well, just to block the advance. Computer thinks that that was a better move, given that it pins the pawn to the queen. However, it sort of takes me out of that battery, and that was sort of my reasoning here. Captures, captures, and here the opponent starts a line that becomes their undoing. So I think the opponent here got very greedy, so moving to the queen side and potentially weakening, and I would say critically weakening, the defense of their king. Stockfish calls it a blunder, and you'll see that they get a little bit obsessed with trying to capture these pawns, potentially, I think, maybe thinking that they'll get passed pawns of their own. However, as before, with no defenders of the g6 square, the move queen to g6 becomes very powerful. King is forced to retreat, and I'm very proud of this next move now. I did actually see it in the game, and this is the move that chess.com algorithms call brilliant, and I think it's a pretty damn good move as well. So the bishop to h6, capturing the h-pawn. Now the opponent cannot capture back, obviously, because if they did so, then queen captures, and that would be checkmate. And so it is absolutely crucial that the opponent now needs to defend that pawn, given that the next potential sequence of moves is bishop captures. That puts the king in check again. Forced move that'll be a forced move for the rook to capture the bishop, and then queen captures rook with checkmate. However, as mentioned before, I think the opponent got maybe a little bit greedy and a little bit of tunnel vision and decided to capture that pawn. And you see, it's a blunder because of the aforementioned mate in two. However, I decided to take the queen back here. Opponent had an opportunity, but captured my other pawn, thinking I think that the defense was fine, but that now leaves to the absolutely beautiful move, absolute beautiful move, bishop to g7, check, discovered check with the queen as well. With double check, the only thing that the king can do is move, but they cannot move out of checkmate. So this is double check, checkmate, double checkmate. Thank you, opponent, for such a great game. GG.